I'm Glenn Campbell, the demographic doomster, with a video response to Prince Harry and Meghan Markel, who have recently announced that for the sake of the environment, they will be having only 2 children. There are flaws in this reasoning I'm going to describe in this video, but first here's a little news clip.
Prince Harry saying he and Duchess Meghan will have 2 children maximum. Let's go back to ABC's Jane Longman in London with the reason behind it. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Michael. Yeah, this issue of Vogue, it's not out till Friday, but I can tell you this is one of the most frank and revealing insights the Prince has ever shared. Writing in this September issue of Vogue UK, which is, of course, Meghan is guest editing, he said the couple plans to have only 1 more child out of concern for the environment. He was speaking in an interview with conservationist Dr. Jane Goodall, and he said he's always had a connection and a love for nature, saying he's always thought this place is borrowed, so when it came to children, he would have 2 maximum to limit the impact on the planet.
So I call this environmental antinatalism. The reasoning is the same whether you're having only 2 children or you're having 0 children. The idea is that every child has a carbon footprint. They're spewing out a certain amount of carbon through the products and services that they use. Therefore, if you have fewer children, you will be helping the environment. Now, there's a lot of good reasons to not have children. There are practical ones like you just can't afford it. There are also other complex philosophical ones like you don't want to bring a new suffering into the world. But the environmental argument is flawed. And there are several reasons for this. Let's get into a couple minor ones. First of all, the population of the world is already peaking anyway. If we talk about Britain alone, their fertility rate is already down in the dumps. So even if environmentalists do nothing, if they don't change their fertility habits at all, the population of Great Britain and the population of the world is eventually going to fall. So there really isn't any need to take action in those terms because fertility and population are falling anyway. The second issue is that not every child is going to have the same carbon footprint. It depends a lot on how you're raised. If you're raised to be very environmentally conscious, if you're in your community, you're using a lot of renewable energy, then your carbon footprint for each child might be small compared to people who, a community that burns a lot of coal for its energy, a community that has a lot of gas-guzzling vehicles. In those communities, the carbon footprint for each child might be quite large. So you can't really say that each child is going to cause so much carbon effects on the universe. It's just not like that. It's just not a one-to-one correspondence. But the most devastating argument is simply that if all the environmentalists decide not to have children, what does that leave us with? It leaves us with non-environmentalists. In other words, there's always going to be people that reproduce. But if a certain class of people decides not to, the most intelligent people decide not to, the most environmentally conscious people decide not to, then that turns the planet over to the Trump voters, essentially, the people who want to build more coal plants, who want to cut down trees, who don't believe in global warming. What you're doing by not having children is you're turning over the planet to these troglodytes who are going to trash it. Let's make a little graph here. So over here is the environmentalists that say we divide the world into two kinds of people. Here are the environmentalists, and here are the non-environmentalists. These are the people who, the environmentalists are the people who are very environmentally conscious. If they have children, they're going to raise them to be environmentally conscious. And here are the anti-environmentalists, the people who believe we should burn more coal and cut down more trees. If the size of the environmentalist population shrinks, what does that leave us with? It leaves us with these cavemen down here who are going to trash the planet because the environmentalists have deliberately taken themselves out of the game. They're no longer a political force anymore because they've simply decided not to have any children. So if all of the Prince Harrys and Meghan Markles who care about the planet don't have children, we're not going to have a planet. The planet is going to get trashed because one way or the other, humanity will survive. Somebody will reproduce. And if it's not the good people reproducing, if not the conscious people reproducing, then other people will reproduce. Other people will move into that space. And this also works more broadly when we argue, well, why should you have children at all? And it's the same thing. It's not like you're trying to save humanity or even save your country. What you're trying to save is your community, your small subsection of the community, and your belief system and your value system. Because the most important parts of a value system, of a morality system, are conveyed in early childhood. They're conveyed to children who can barely talk. That's where morality comes from. And if you aren't there to create those children, then whatever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that you've worked for all your life, is going to vanish. Now, maybe you haven't worked for anything all your life. Maybe you don't believe in anything. In that case, not having children is just fine. It's fine by me that you exterminate your segment of the population because you're not contributing anything. But if you happen to contribute something, then you need a new generation to carry on that accomplishment. If you write a book and you think it's an important book, well, you have to have somebody in the next generation to read that book. Otherwise, your book is useless. What you have built is useless. So that's the reason you want to have children. It's not for the emotional thing, because you can have pets. If you want emotional satisfaction, get a dog or a cat. But if you want to carry on something to the next generation, you have to have children or contribute to the upbringing of children when they are very young, because that's the only way you're really going to bring them into your community and train them in your community and in whatever it is that you want to continue to the next generation. So this whole environmental antinatalism is a product of the 1960s. It is a product of the Paul Ehrlich population bomb era, when everybody feared that the population was going to expand exponentially. And it turns out it's not expanding exponentially. It is peaking. It is coming to a top. In many countries it has already peaked, and now the population is going to dive. And the issue now isn't saving the planet from overpopulation, it is saving whatever community you believe in and want to preserve. The billions on the planet aren't relevant anymore. What is relevant is, what are your values and how are you going to carry them on to the next generation? The Parthenon, the world's largest replica of the Parthenon in Athens. And I must say, this one is in much better condition than the one in Athens. This one is pretty well kept up.